Developing tonight, the White House advisor behind the bogus Benghazi talking points, remember that? Finds himself at the center of a new explosive controversy, and he finds himself on defense. Ben Rhodes is the man who has helped to co-write every single one of the president's major foreign policy speeches. And he was on the hot seat this weekend after admitting to the New York Times Magazine that the narrative sold to the American public on the Iranian nuke deal was done with the help of so-called experts who simply echoed White House talking points. And the Iran deal was not his first offense. James Rosen, our chief Washington correspondent, is with us now. So, James, what exactly, and Ben Rhodes is speaking out about this now, but what exactly is it that he did that's gotten him in trouble?
Okay, so this past weekend, the New York Times Magazine ran a 10,000-word profile of Ben Rhodes, the deputy White House National Security Advisor for Strategic Communications, written by a respected reporter, this profile, David Samuels. And in it, Ben Rhodes is quoted throughout expressing pretty fairly discernible contempt for the White House press corps, for the foreign policy establishment, which he calls the blob, and in which he includes Hillary Clinton and Bob Gates and so forth. And the article makes the following accusation. That Rhodes and the Obama administration pointed to the election of a new president in Iran, Hassan Rouhani, in 2013 as the reason why we've got to do a nuclear deal with Iran, because now we've got a moderate government in there. And the article shows very clearly that, in fact, the Obama administration had begun its secret talks with Iran well before that election in Iran back in 2012. Ben Rhodes, as you note, is defending himself today in a very short piece on Medium.com, in essence saying, we believed everything we said. It may have been spin, but it wasn't lies. But I have to tell you, having read all of this very closely, even Ben Rhodes' defense of himself contains some untrue statements, Megan.
So I mean, in the article with the New York Times Magazine, he basically admits that they lied to the public, that he thinks they did it for a good reason, that the ends justified the means, and that they used what he clearly views as a stupid, compliant, lazy press corps to get the job done.
Right. He says that most of the reporters that they dealt with were on average 27-year-olds and knew, as he put it, literally nothing about world affairs. And to some extent, there is some legitimacy in Ben Rhodes' indictment of the Washington press corps. I, and certain other reporters, of course, in the Washington press corps, all along have been questioning some of the untruths told by the Obama administration, both about the original sets of negotiations with Iran and when they began, but also some of the lies that were told about the actual substance of the deal. Ben Rhodes was on CNN last April, April of 2015, saying that this deal means that there will be anytime, anywhere, 24/7 access of Iran's nuclear sites, and that turned out not to be true.
Well, and didn't you also ask him, James, didn't you also ask them about these channels of communication that had been established with Iran long before the moderate was elected there? I mean, you were pressing them on the BS that was, oh, we just have to do it now because we have a friend running Iran.
Well, look, they lied flatly to me from the State Department podium. I showed up in the press briefing because I'd gotten a tip that there were some kind of secret bilateral talks going on between the United States and Iran. That was February of 2013. The State Department briefer at the time, Victoria Nuland, said, government-to-government contacts of the kind you're talking about? No. That they had been going on for 8 months at that time. So is that permissible? Is that permissible? I mean, you know, sometimes you lie to protect national security. They don't want it leaking to the press at that point. Well, I'll report and we'll let the viewers decide if that's permissible.
All right, stand by because we want to bring in Steve Hayes, who's senior writer for the Weekly Standard and a Fox News contributor. Steve, so Ben Rhodes finds himself on defense, and it was an extraordinary piece in New York Times Magazine because part of John Podhoretz of the New York Post wrote what was so devastating about it was that the writer didn't cut out Ben Rhodes' knees. He didn't seem to hate Ben Rhodes. So the stuff about his admissions was just devastating because it didn't look like the writer had an agenda. You saw the Ben Rhodes name back when you were investigating, were at the forefront of the investigation on the Benghazi talking points, which the White House had told us over and over and over and over again they never touched. That they never touched before Susan Rice went out on the 5 Sunday shows and said, you know, no, this is about a video. And it turns out they did touch it. And why don't you tell the audience who was the one who authored those infamous talking points?
Well, yeah, I mean, there were basically 2 sets of White House talking points, and Ben Rhodes authored one of the key sets of White House talking points that blamed the attacks on a video. I mean, it was basically made up from beginning to end. Ben Rhodes played a key part in those talking points. He also played a key part in the original set of talking points that originated from the State Department and the CIA, from the intelligence community, and were massaged by the State Department, by other parts of the administration.
It's another instance of them directly misleading us. I mean, they're on camera saying that they had nothing to do with those talking points. Meanwhile, Ben Rhodes wrote the memo, and here they are directly telling James and other intrepid reporters who actually pushed past the talking points, no, it's not happening, and now we know that's not true. So, Steve, I ask you what you make of it.
Yeah, I remember distinctly watching one White House press briefing in particular where Jay Carney was asked a question about the fact that these Benghazi attacks took place on the anniversary of 9/11. And Carney said, you're conflating two things that are unrelated. And if you're sitting outside of the press room and you hear that, you just think, what are you talking about? Of course it matters that this was the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. I think we're seeing exactly the same thing on the question of the Iran deal. I remember at the time, we were asking these questions. I remember the briefing that James just described. We're asking these questions, some of us in the briefing rooms, some of us outside the briefing room, saying, well, that doesn't add up. That doesn't make sense. And one after another, we were told, basically, you don't know what you're talking about. They belittled people who were skeptics, and they enabled people who were amplifiers of their message, many of whom, as James points out, were, in fact, these 27-year-old reporters who had never reported on national security and foreign policy before.
We get paid to be cynical mofos, and we do it with a badge of honor. That's what we're supposed to do. You're not supposed to accept the spoon-fed spin, and that's why these two guys are great, because they are cynical mofos. Can you say that on TV? I just did.
You said it. I didn't say it. You said it.
Oh,
my business cards.
No.
It's my business cards say cynical mofo. That's what they say.
Great to see you both.
Thank you.
It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.